Hope for me is sometimes based in fear. When we don't know something is for certain, we have to hope for it. We want for it. We strive to achieve it. And whether that's through learning, through waiting, through hard work and education, when we hope for something, there's a little bit of fear inside of us that we won't get it. It's a comfort with fear that keeps us striving for more. My name is Amelia Rose Earhart, and I share hope.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Amelia.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Should I be on video?
Or can we do that? We love the video thing, if possible.
Sure. Let's see.
There you are.
Super bright in here, but it's nice to meet you.
Love the painting behind you. What in the world? Where's that from?
Well, I think it's from like Pottery Barn or somewhere. Kind of.
So not a local artist you met in some place across the world and brought it home in the airplane?
Unfortunately not, but just to brag for a moment, I did just make this pumpkin
No way.
For roses. So I promise I do have some character in the house.
No kidding, you do. You're an artist too. That's impressive. I love it.
I have family coming over for Thanksgiving, so I'm getting the house all ready.
You got to dress it up. So are y'all like going all holiday, like in Christmas and stuff before they come over, or are you staying with the real Thanksgiving type theme?
I definitely merge the two.
Yeah.
For sure. How about you?
It's easy to do that. We kind of get halfway in between as well. You know, it's hard to stay with pumpkins and cornucopias. You so want to have some lights up or something, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got wreaths and we're putting up the tree Thanksgiving night, I think. So it's going to be beautiful. And we got some snow here in Denver this morning. So I'm kind of feeling a little bit more Christmassy.
I'm so jealous. So the mountain range behind you, is it just covered in snow already? Are y'all getting enough?
You know, we do have, I'll show you want to see the Colorado mountains.
Do you have a view from your, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, we got a great view here. So I think you can see some snow, some great clouds. And each day the sunset over that view is just so great because it's the clouds and the storms that form here make it really beautiful. So yeah, there's some snow visible.
We love your state. We visit there as often as possible, summer and winter. In fact, I think summer is our favorite time of year. I know people come out to ski, but we love the summer in the mountains out there.
Yeah. And where do you live?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, great.
So it is very, very flat and 17-hour drive to get past the mountains and over the pass and into Summit County. That's our target very often. Yeah.
Very nice. I've always wanted to visit Tennessee, and we've got some friends who just moved to Nashville, so we'll probably be coming out to visit them.
No kidding. Nashville's a great town. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Right.
Well, right before you called, literally, I didn't finish the last, I think, 30 seconds of this video on your website. I've been just watching, and this is so amazing. I knew about you and followed some of your story, but just getting into the details, oh my goodness. So just in case people don't know, this is Amelia Earhart. No kidding. This is Amelia Earhart. And are you named? Is that your real name? Like that's what your parents named you?
Yes, it is my real name.
Was it after the other Amelia Earhart? Like, did they think of that?
Yes, they definitely did. And so my family's last name was spelled exactly the same as the first Amelia. And it was always oral tradition on my dad's side that we were somehow distantly related to Amelia. And so I grew up, learning about her and being told, oh, you should learn how to fly someday. And I hired a genealogist in college to figure out exactly how we were related. And we found out that there was this distant common ancestry and traced back to the 1700s and all of this. Cool. And then I planned this whole flight around the world, got all these additional ratings to learn how to fly and all this. And then I found out right before I recreated Amelia's flight around the world that I was not related through a different genealogical search. So it's a wild story, but basically I'm just a namesake of hers. And it's awesome because now I get to decide how I want to be related to Amelia. And it's not a blood connection. It's because we both share a lot of the same passions for adventure and for flight.
Yeah. So If you're listening or watching, by the way, if you're listening, you should just turn your iPod or your phone off and go to YouTube and watch this thing. That way you can see her and actually see the mountain range behind her house and the Pottery Barn art. You got to see that.
It's
So,
fancy.
and the centerpiece, the table centerpiece. So in the summer of 2014, Amelia Rose Earhart, the one we're talking to now, flew a plane, a single engine prop plane. So this has the propeller in the front. For those of you who aren't airplane fans, I don't know enough about them. So one engine, it's that propeller in the front, and she flew this thing around the world to recreate the flight of her famous namesake, Amelia Earhart. She went 24,300 nautical miles, 108.6 flight hours. That's wheels up to wheels down, if I get that right, if I'm right. 80% over water, so over oceans and things like that. 18 days, 14 countries on one engine, and it says 0 squawks. Now, again, I'm a novice. What does that mean?
So a squawk is an aviation term for something that goes wrong. So you would squawk an incident where maybe a radio malfunctioned or you had to repair something. And somehow we made it all the way around a whole planet without one single malfunction or issue. And granted, I was flying a beautiful plane that I essentially borrowed for the trip, but it was essentially brand new.
Wow.
So sometimes you got to work out the kinks, but I really lucked out.
Who got your cool, famous airplane?
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story. So the manufacturer of the aircraft let me borrow it. After I was done with the flight, it made its way to a bunch of trade shows and we did some appearances with it.
Sure.
Then a family in Louisiana ended up purchasing the aircraft. They had a little girl who had to do a school report about Amelia Earhart. And she told the story of not only the first Amelia, but also the second Amelia, myself, which is very flattering, who flew around the world in her dad's plane. I love that it all came together like that.
Oh my goodness. That's so cool.
It kind of gives me chills.
Well, it just gave me an idea. I'm going to call Lamborghini and see if they will let me borrow a car so I can just drive across America. I think that's what I should do next.
Good luck with that.
I'm impressed. Well, Amelia, you know how this works. We are asking 1,000 people who are delivering hope in a serious way to their community, whoever you're serving and whoever you're influencing, and you're obviously doing that in a large way, to answer our 5 questions about hope. And everybody gets asked the same questions. You get to answer them your way, though. Not my answers, not anybody else on the survey, but just you. So we would love to ask you these questions if you'll let us do it. Are you good with that?
Let's go for it.
Okay. So question 1, what is your favorite quote about hope, or maybe a favorite definition about hope?
My definition of hope has changed over the years. And right now, it might not be the definition that you want to hear, Chris, and I feel like that's going to be okay with you.
It's totally okay.
Hope for me is sometimes based in fear, right? When we don't know something is for certain, we have to hope for it. We want for it. We strive to achieve it. And whether that's through learning, through waiting, through hard work and education, when we hope for something, there's a little bit of fear inside of us that we won't get it, right? Whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. I run the Fly with Amelia Foundation. We put young women through flight school. We teach girls who are coming from all sorts of backgrounds how to fly airplanes, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fear that works into that, but it's the fear that keeps us striving to learn more. Mm-hmm. It's the fear that keeps me going back to the airport to continually learn, right? So my definition of hope, maybe it's not all tied up with a pretty bow around it. I haven't quite worked it all out, but honestly, it's a comfort with fear that keeps us striving for more. And I see it in the young women who are learning to fly, and I feel it in myself. When I'm hopeful for something, I'm a little fearful that I won't get it. But if I have it for certain and it's already in the bag, mm-hmm. I lose that excitement. I lose that anticipation. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And you're the first person I've heard address it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the honesty in that. And it's true. It's true. We all feel it down in our gut that we're scared. And that's a great foundation for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people want to put a sort of a Pollyanna view on hope, right? We hope for things that will make our lives better and enrich our relationships and all of this. But when you really break it down, it's a fear that we won't get there. And so a comfort with fear takes some of the anxiety around fear away, which I think is something that we could all benefit by.
Well said. Thanks. Question 2 then. Who has given you that kind of hope? Who's really influenced you that way?
So many people. I think every stranger that I meet is in some way a role model in disguise. And I think there's something that we can learn from every single person. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be things that I take away from our interview here, and we will, we haven't met in person. It's a random chance meeting here that you set up this interview, and there's something to be found and dug out from every connection. But when it really comes down to a few of the standouts in my life, I had a mentor leading up to my flight around the world where when I found out that I wasn't related to the first Amelia, and the question came up of, do I cancel this flight? Do I throw it all away? Or do I push forward and try to make it happen? This person, who I want to remain nameless, represents the ultimate form of hope for me, because he said to me, and this was when I was in the depths of trying to figure out what my identity exactly was, right? My name essentially had been taken away. Do I cancel this whole flight that I had spent 2 years planning and I quit my job to do?
Wow.
He said to me, he said, Amelia, I'm going to ask you a question. The day you were born, did the FAA, the group that, of course, administers pilot's licenses and allows people to become pilots and achieve their aviation goals, did they walk into that delivery room and hand you your pilot's license just because your parents named you Amelia Earhart? And I said, no, of course not. And he said, that's right. He said, you put the hard work in. You spent the time going out there, spending your money, spending your energy, trying to achieve this goal. And so when I think about somebody who really truly showed me the meaning of hope, it was hoping that others could meet me at the point where I knew who I was, I knew what my identity was. Maybe they hadn't caught up yet, because there was a lot of anger. A lot of people said, oh, you were trying to have this identity that you didn't really, that didn't belong to you, or you wanted people to believe you were related to Amelia.
Wow.
The long story short is, the longer I held out and said, no, this is who I am, I'm going to do this flight around the world, not out of obligation, but by choice, that's when people joined along with me and said, you know what, there are things that I can hope for in my world and make them come true. And those came out in the form of letters, social media notes, the most beautiful handwritten acknowledgments along the way. And so that's a good example for me. And the point is, when you look back at the things you've accomplished, it's easy for others to try to take them away from you. But who did the hard work? Who stayed up late? Who got up early? And who made the effort?
I love that and think you're absolutely right. I don't think the first Amelia was doing it because she was named Amelia. She had something to get done and she did it, and you did the same thing.
She had it inside of her heart. And that's what I found in myself. And when someone tried to take it away, by maybe misunderstanding what the connection was, and me learning, and I work in television. I work on a morning show doing traffic and weather reports. So I was a very public figure. And when that's all put out there for everybody to just consume as they want, you really have to understand who you are and what you want to do for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh, cool. I didn't know you worked in television. I've got about a dozen questions bouncing around my head, but they are not part of the 5, so I'll save them. Question 3. Take us back to a time when you really had to lean on the hope you're talking about. You just gave us a great example, but anything else back there that really made you have to reach deep and say, I'm going to continue forward? Tell us about that.
Well, I think I'll expand on that specific story, because that really was a crux in my life where I had to say, I'm either going to accept the opinions of others, people who have no idea who I really am. They don't know my character. They either see me on TV, they followed me on social media, or maybe they had just heard about the story. It was either allow their opinions to define what I was capable of accomplishing, or dig really deep and say, you know what, I'm going to do this flight not because I want to prove to them that I can, but because I want to prove to myself that I can. And if the outcome in my mind was no longer dependent on, let's say, acceptance from all these strangers who were following the flight, and it was more dependent on the acceptance of myself when I finished, did I feel like I did the right thing in the end? That for me, that was the ultimate test of my hope. And you can see how it incorporated a lot of fear. That fear of, am I strong enough to handle this? Do I know enough about who I am to know that I won't give up halfway around the world and try to cancel the whole thing? You know, knowing that I had so many kids and little girls with these adventurous aspirations following me, and watching that little red dot on my website as it tracked all the way across the largest oceans in the world. I mean, I flew around the equator.
Wow.
It was the hope of those little girls who were watching this flight, knowing that they were there. And you should see the pictures that were flooding in and the messages we were getting. They were saying, we hope that you finish. And that honestly was the fuel inside the wings of my airplane. That kept a lot of it going. And there were plenty of reasons to want to cancel and want to quit. But that's one of those situations where digging deep to find that hope really paid off, because now I walk with my shoulders back and my head held high, and I'm not Amelia Earhart, named after the first Amelia. I'm this version of Amelia, who, yes, same arrangement of letters, totally different person with a lot of the same passion.
That's really cool. I love it. So what are you doing now? Question 4, what are you doing now to share hope with people around you? You can go for the foundation you started and are working in heavily, or you can talk about how you share hope with somebody at Starbucks in the morning. It's up to you.
Well, you know, sharing hope is one of my favorite things. People will, if you meet any of my friends or any of my acquaintances even, they'll say, Amelia is probably an optimist to an annoying level, right? I love to find the good in everything. So for me, being a good listener is a way to share hope, because you have no idea what people are going through and their silent struggles, right? And sometimes when someone just pays attention to you, that can be the difference maker. When someone really listens and asks you a couple questions, that's a really simple one, and one that you can literally just practice right now. Reach out to somebody who maybe you don't even think they're going through anything tough, but people are always surprised when you give them that extra chance to be heard. So that's just one I do every day. But the two really actionable, tangible, big things. The first is the Fly with Amelia Foundation. So we give scholarships to girls 16 to 18 all across the country. They get $7,500 to learn how to fly, which means I'll use Camilla Bradley as an example. She's my most recent scholarship recipient. And this girl is 18 years old. She has spent most of her life in foster care. She is African American. She came from a very low income, just terrible upbringing, no relationship with her parents. She applied for the scholarship and just absolutely blew me away with her enthusiasm. We met up for coffee, and by the end of a 30-minute chat, I said, this girl is going to change the world. Giving her that extra little bit of hope and taking away some of the financial burden, because she knew somehow she was going to grow up to be an airline captain.
That's so cool.
She just finished university on a full ride, and on top of everything else, she just made the Golden Eagles flight team. And she is a young woman who she takes every opportunity, even coming from a situation growing up where she was essentially raising her parents. She was in and out of foster care, dealing with health issues and all sorts of problems. So that's what the foundation for me is all about. And then the third thing, which is so much fun, and I get to do it at the TV station, is I do a weekly series called STEM Superstars. And so we're telling the stories of educators and kids all across Colorado that are focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math, and creating career opportunities for kids. And so that's one that for me is fun, because we're saying develop these skills and you will get the job that you want to create the life that you want.
That's cool and really practical. It really is. I
And
love
you have
it.
to balance, yeah, you have to balance the practical with the la-ti-da, life is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
'Cause if you have a good balance there, you can reach the biggest amount of people.
My mind is just kind of exploding trying to figure out how you cram all this into your schedule, but I'm so glad you're doing it all.
It's because I get up at 2:45 in the morning.
Holy cow. So is it almost bedtime? What is it, 4 o'clock where you are? 3 o'clock, something like that?
Yep, exactly. It's almost time to go to bed. No, I'm kidding. I don't sleep enough, but there's so many opportunities to connect and just be excited about life. I know it sounds silly and almost too charmed, but I think every day we have a decision to make, and that's whether or not we're going to have the kind of day that we want to remember or the kind of day that we want to forget.
That's a good quote right there. I'm writing that one down. All right, question 5. Give us some simple ABC steps. How can we share hope starting right now? We finish this interview, or how can we grow as people of hope? What do we do next?
So I've been rolling around an idea lately, and it all ties back to flying, which is convenient. Um,
It's
when
kind of a theme.
it's kind of a theme in my life, you could say.
Yeah.
As I look across the room, I have a big propeller over there leaning up against the wall. So it's everywhere, all around me. But whenever I think about a goal that I have, whether it's a business idea, whether it's a health improvement I want to make, a relationship goal, say I want to reconnect with somebody in my family, I think of it in the same way that I would tackle planning a flight. So we start with a pre-flight examination, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't just launch into flying an airplane if you hadn't looked under the hood, kicked the tires, filled up the gas tanks, put in fresh oil. You want to make sure that you're ready to go. So it's before you launch into anything, new project at work or a book, think about where you are. What's the current situation? What's your status, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to make some improvements before you start, do it. Because if you get into an airplane that hasn't had a thorough pre-flight examination and then you end up in a crash landing, you go, well, why didn't it work? Well, there wasn't enough fuel in the tanks, right? Do you have the energy to make these things happen? From there, when you're starting your engine, that's how you tell the world that you want to get out and try something new. So that's how I think about when we voice something maybe on our Facebook page and say, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna help this person out, start a new project. That's when we start our engine. Everyone at the airport can hear you.
Yeah.
On takeoff, you've got full throttle, full power ahead. You're climbing up as high as you can go. I'll skip a few steps here because I do want to be succinct. But the big one, before you come in for that safe and graceful landing, which we always hope for, is the fact that turbulence is a part of every flight. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it will just rock your socks off and scare you to death. Everything that we launch into, every part of the spectrum, you'll encounter turbulence. Think of it, and this is my biggest tip, think of it like a pothole as you drive over in your car. A pothole does not crash your car into a million pieces and make it so you can't drive. It jolts you awake and it reminds you that you're driving. And that's how I think about turbulence in the plane. And that's how I think about problems along any path, start to finish. So anticipating and acknowledging that it's always going to be there keeps you hoping for that safe outcome. But you never give up hope because it's not going to break you apart. It's just going to make you a better pilot.
Strong points.
Thank
Great
you.
analogy, strong points. That's very usable. I love the part about turbulence because we all get pretty derailed sometimes when we bump into something and it seems like we should stop, but it's not necessarily a sign to stop.
Yeah, just because a plane that's flying into Denver, where we get turbulence on almost every flight, coming in towards the mountains, they don't turn the plane around and go back to Chicago.
Right.
You're skilled. You're there for a reason. You're landing that plane, and if you've got the guts and the determination to launch towards your goal, you've done the work. Trust what you've learned and push through it because that's all it is. It just reminds you that you're up in the sky. And so few people are up there, so enjoy the view.
Yeah, great.
Flying is easy to make analogies about, or metaphors for other things in life.
Yeah, sure. Once you've gone around the world in an airplane, it's easy to make analogies about that. Sure, anybody could do it, right?
I have a lot of time to sit up there and think about it, trust me.
All right, so people obviously are going to want to follow you and find out more of what you're doing. I know you're a public speaker. You have so many opportunities for them to engage. Where do we find you? Website, social media? Tell us how to get you.
Yeah, all that's super easy. So flywithamelia.org is the website where if you've got a girl who, she's adventurous, she's young, she's at that high school age, she wants to maybe think about learning how to fly, send her my way because I need more applicants for those scholarships and we've got plenty of money to give away.
Great.
So flywithamelia.org. Social media wise, I'm on Instagram, Amelia Rose Earhart, Twitter, search Amelia Earhart. I'm the youngest looking one, right? That's my joke. All the fan accounts for Amelia Earhart with the black and white photos.
Okay.
But you'll find me there. And I love, love, love to engage one-on-one. So send me a note, reach out and tag me directly. And I do all my own social media. So I promise you won't be getting a canned response.
Very cool. That's great. So if you're running or shopping at a store, whatever you're doing while you're listening to this, if you're not sitting down somewhere, you can go back to the link here at isharehope.com from the podcast, wherever, and we will have all of Amelia's info there under the interviews tab. So isharehope.com, look for Amelia's name under the interviews tab, and we will have all the stuff about this episode, all her links, everything you need right there to track her down. So, Amelia, 14 countries. Where did you land? And did you stop and actually get to see anything, or was it just, hey, fill her up, we're out of here?
It was fill her up. I got 10 hours to fly tomorrow, so I got to get a little bit of sleep. So I flew eastbound, and that meant that as you go east, you're losing hours.
Yeah, so the days are really fast, the nights are short.
Yeah, they're even faster than you could even imagine on the biggest adventure of your life. So I'll rattle them off very quickly. Oakland, Denver, Miami, Trinidad and Tobago, Natal, Brazil, Dakar, Senegal, Sao Tome, Tanzania, right at the base of Kilimanjaro, which was stunning. Wow. Seychelles Islands, the Maldives, Singapore, Darwin, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Tarawa, Christmas Island, Honolulu, and back to Oakland. And Oakland, or Honolulu to Oakland, is the longest stretch of ocean that any aircraft can fly. Because
Really?
it's the biggest distance between two land masses with no alternate in between. There's nowhere to land. So I had to go to open water survival training classes to learn how to get pushed out of a helicopter and use your survival gear in a raft. The training process was intense.
Wow. Okay, so as an expert on Amelia Earhart, the original one,
Right.
do you have any really good beliefs or theories on what happened to her? Like, do you know?
Gosh, it's so hard to say. And there are crews and research teams out there looking for her year-round, 24/7. And I know it sounds like the diplomatic answer, but I promise there is a reason behind it. I don't have a solid opinion on what happened to Amelia, and that's because I'm going to let other people focus on what happened to her after she passed away or the end of her life. I want to focus on that hope and that inspiration that she created while she still had a choice and while she was still in control. So that's my focus on Amelia. If they find her wreckage and they do determine what happened to her during my lifetime, I will be so happy because it's a modern day mystery that so many people are intrigued by. But for me, it's all about her living days.
Mm-hmm. Was there did you feel something when you got to the point where she stopped and you went on alone without Amelia already being there once? Was that a special moment?
Absolutely. I mean, so Howland Island, which is where Amelia intended to land with her navigator, Fred Noonan, after she departed from Papua New Guinea. Well, myself and my co-pilot, Shane Jordan, as we left Papua New Guinea and flew towards Howland Island, I had something very special planned. I circled over Howland, over the spot that Amelia wanted to see, more intensely than she had wanted anything in her entire life, I'm sure of it. She was flying in the dark, at night, in bad weather, using celestial navigation, so using the stars to triangulate her point in space. That's how difficult it was for her to find this tiny little speck of an island that's about 4 miles of coastline around, and that's it.
Wow.
So as we flew over, I had a plan, and I was so glad to do this. We used social media to let 10 girls all across the U.S. learn that they had won the Fly with Amelia Foundation scholarship. And so we handed out close to $75,000 just as in, take this and go be passionate, learn to fly, make the most of it. So that was sort of my tribute to Amelia. And I had chills. I was crying like a baby. I'm shaking. I can feel it right now. I'm holding this little GPS device that allowed me to tweet out the girls' names, and I barely held it together.
Oh.
I'm not saying that I had the, spirit of Amelia or anything like that, whatever your beliefs are. I'm saying that there was something very intentional. It didn't happen on accident. It happened on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It was more two Amelias, 77 years apart, standing for the same thing, which was adventure and supporting other women and encouraging them to just go for their goals.
Awesome.
Thank
Fantastic. That's a great spot to end, I'm sure. I've got another dozen questions, but you have a life to live, and I should probably let you go at some point.
I got a turkey to cook.
That's right. More pumpkins to stuff and make look awesome on your tables.
Exactly.
So we have each of our guests say their name and I Share Hope, so we can put that at the beginning of the podcast and the audio only. So say your name and I Share Hope, or your name and something about you and I Share Hope. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you.
Sure. My name is Amelia Rose Earhart, and I share hope.
Love it. Love it.
Perfect.
Amazing.
I love what you're doing. I think it's magical.
I think what you've done is magical too. Last question. I just got to know, did you ever fly for so long that you had to sleep?
Well, not on the actual flight.
Okay.
I had planned, I had 10 hours of fuel on board the plane, and I had to put an extra fuel tank on board.
Okay.
So essentially 10 hours was the longest I could fly. There was a lot of adrenaline. There was a lot of just emotion up there. And so I don't think I could have slept if I wanted to.
That's a great point. It's a pretty exciting couple of days or a couple of weeks, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And at the time, it felt very slow. But once I landed in Oakland, I thought, okay, let's go again, because I want to go back and see all the things that I didn't get to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were so many details, and the realization. My dad asked me the coolest question about the flight around the world. Before I left, he said, honey, when you get back from this flight around the world, do you think the world will feel like a bigger or a smaller place?
Huh.
And so I said, well, Dad, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think on that one. And once I landed, I realized that, of course, the world is a much, much, much smaller place than you ever think it could be. Mm-hmm. But it's so much bigger in terms of the beauty and the potential that it holds for all of us. Mm-hmm. And that's what the flight made me realize.
And that is Amelia Rose Earhart. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the holidays. Thanks for sharing hope with us.
Happy holidays.
Talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the Top 10 Actions of Hope from World Leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.